Okay, algebra fans, our topic for today is solving equations using the least common denominator. And before we start, let me tell you your joke of the day. Why are teddy bears never hungry? The answer is because they're always stuffed. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is review what's called the LCM, which is the least common multiple. Least means lowest or smallest. So it's the smallest natural number that a group of numbers can all divide into evenly. So for example, the least common multiple of 4 and 5, can you think of a number that both of these will go into? So it has to be a number that's bigger. Normally it's going to be larger than these or equal to one of them. So I can't say 2. 2 is a factor of 4. So not what divides into 4 and 5, but what they divide into. So the multiples, for example, of 4, you could do 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. And the multiples of 5, 5, 10, 15, 20. So the lowest common multiple would be 20. That's the smallest number that both of these will divide into. Now, one way to get a common multiple is to multiply these two. So for example, 4 times 5 is 20. 2 times 4 is 8. So 8 is a common multiple, but it's not the least common multiple. In this case, if I look at the number 4. So actually, the number 4 is going to be the common multiple of both of these. So 4 is the LCM. 4 is the smallest, the least common multiple. So we're always looking for the smallest number. So 9 and 6, 9 times 6 is 54. But the question is there something smaller that both of these go into? And the answer is 18. 18 divided by 9 is 2. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So it divides perfectly. 8 and 12. Again, one way to do this is just to start looking at multiples. I'll take the smaller number, 8, 16, 24. 12 is 12, and then 24. So 24 is my LCM. Now, how about if you have three numbers, 3, 4, and 5? You could find the LCM of these two. For 3 and 4, it would be 12. And then 12 and 5 would actually be 60. It would be 12 times 5, which is 60. There's nothing smaller than that. Okay? So this idea of least common multiple is going to be real important when we look in a moment here. So another review using fractions. So number 1, we're going to simplify this expression. That means we're going to distribute. So the 1/2 multiplies 4x. I can write that as 4x over 1. And then the 1/2 multiplies 8. And then here it's 2/3 times 9x. And then 2/3 times, that's a -3. And again, I can put these over 1 if I want to. When you multiply fractions, you multiply the numerators together and the denominators. But what I'm going to do to simplify, so I could say that's 4x over 2. And then divide that to get 2x. But what's going to be easier is to just I can do the division first. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And now I multiply and we just get the 2x. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 1 times 4 is 4. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So 2 times 3x is 6x positive. So I'll put a plus sign there. Now, -3 divided by 3 is -1. 2 times -1 is -2. Okay, so that's what we get from distributing. And then like terms, 2x plus 6x equals 8x. 4 minus 2 is positive 2. Okay, so there's our simplified answer. Now, let's say we solve an equation that has a fraction in it. Let's think of this as 2x minus 3 all divided by -4. So for our first move, let's undo the division. So we're going to multiply -4 on the left side and then multiply by negative 4 on the right side. Now instead of distributing, let's do the division first, because that's like negative 4 over 1. So this negative 4 is on top, this negative 4 is on the bottom in the denominator. Divide that, that's just 1. So what we're left with is 2x minus 3 equals, and then multiply, that's negative 16, and now we have a normal problem. Let's move the constant, so we'll go plus 3 on both sides, so 2x equals negative 13, and then the last move, that's 2 times x, so to undo that, we divide, and we get x equals, now negative 13 over 2 is a good answer, or you could say negative 6.5. That's the decimal. And one thing that we've talked about is you always want to check your answer. Okay, so if I take the calculator here, I'm going to take, I'll use the decimal negative 6.5. If I plug it back into the original problem, so I can do a fraction, and it was 2 times negative 6.5 minus 3, that's the top of the fraction, over, so I have to come down, negative 4. So we're dividing by negative 4. Now that value, that's the left side, is positive 4. And on the right side here, the original problem was positive 4. So that's how we know that we're good. That's the check. So we know that that's correct. All right, now, what happens if we have more than one fraction in an equation? So this is called solving equations using the LCD. LCM is least common multiple. LCD is least common denominator. So the bottom of a fraction. So let's say we want to solve x over 2 plus 1 over 4 equals 3x over 8. One thing you can do, you could combine these two fractions by getting a common denominator and then go from there. But what's going to be easiest is to try to eliminate all the denominators at the beginning. Well, to do that, we need to multiply by a number that each of these go into. So what's the LCD of 2, 4, and 8? What is the least common multiple of these? Well, in this case, it's actually 8. 2 goes into 8, 4 goes into 8, and 8 goes into 8. 8 goes into itself. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to take the left side and the right side, and we are going to multiply by the LCD. Now this is what's going to happen. Watch what happens here. I'm going to distribute on the left side. So 8 times, that's a 1x over 2, and then it's 8 times 1 over 4. Now what happens here, I can divide. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 times 1x is 4x. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 2 times 1 is positive 2, so I'll put a plus there, equals. Now here we multiply by 8, but let's divide first. 8 divided by 8 is 1, so it's just 1 times 3x, which is 3x. And look at what happened. Your fractions are now gone because we've reduced all of them to 1. This is 4x over 1, 2 over 1, 3x over 1. So by doing this one move here, now the fractions are gone, and now we can solve it. Let's move the 4x to the other side. We'll subtract it, make a 0 pair. So we get 2 equals negative 1x. And then the last move here is divide by negative 1. And what we get is negative 2 equals x. Okay, now, is that the correct answer? Well, let's take negative 2. Now, the left side, I'm going to put negative 2 in here. So I'm going to do fraction, negative 2 divided by 2. And then to the right, I'm going to do plus another fraction. That's 1/4. And let's see what the value is. Okay, so we get negative 3 over 4 for the left side. Now the right side was 3x divided by 8. So we'll do fraction. 3 times, I always put parentheses for times, negative 2 divided by 8. And that is also negative 3 over 4. So what that tells us, the right side, the left side, they have the same value. That means this solution is correct. That is the solution. That is the answer. Okay, so what's our strategy when you have more than one fraction? Let's multiply by the LCD to eliminate all your denominators, and then you solve. Okay, so I'm going to flip it over. Let's take number 4. So we have denominators 8, 4, and then this is a 1. That's minus 3 over 1. Well, what's a common denominator for 4 and 8? Now you can do 4 times 8, you get 32, but it's easier to just use the number 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So we're going to take the left side and the right side and multiply by 8. Where you have to be careful is notice on the right side, since there are 2 terms, I have to distribute here. Okay, so on the left side, all right, 8 divided by 8 is 1, which just leaves us x minus 2. Now, let me write this out. So 1 minus 2x over 4 times 8, and then we have minus 3 times 8. I'm showing my distributive here. 8 divided by 4, that's 2. So what's going to happen here is this 2 will still distribute. So we get x minus 2 equals, that becomes 2 minus 4x, and then this is minus 24. Before we start moving, let's combine like terms. So there's 2 minus 24. So x minus 2 equals, that's negative 22 minus 4x. 2 minus 24 is negative 22. Now I'm going to add 4x to both sides. At the same time, since I'm going to move this to the left, let me move the constant to the right. I'll say plus 2. Notice how I line these up to make it easier to add. So that's 5x, this is 0, equals negative 20, and this is 0. So I'm going to divide by 5, so x equals negative 4. And my phone is ringing, so I'm going to stop part 1.